started. Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm here with my mentor and friend, Blake.
Soon to be friend.
Soon to be friend. Yes. I have whiskey at home that I was gonna bring through, and I was gonna celebrate finally being your friend.
That moment hasn't come yet.
Oh,
Sorry.
but Blake, we reached 10 subscribers. What do you mean? Two of them are me, but like. So today, like I've been thinking a lot about stereotypes within production, especially when it comes to how certain instruments are used. Now, it's a weird conversation to have because there's a difference between production and orchestration. So, as an orchestrator, there are certain things that I know instruments are very good at. So it's the same. It's that arrangement conversation within the big band that us jazz cats have quite a lot. It's like, okay, do you give? Okay, it's okay. Just the nerds like me, where it's like, okay, so you've got a smooth connected line, and you've got a punchy phrase. Do you give it to the brass or the saxes? What do you give to the brass? What do you give to the saxes?
Are you questioning me?
Yes.
Well, I mean, obviously the whatever the way to do it as conceived is you give the punchy stuff to the the trumpet specifically,
Yeah.
and smooth connected lines, fast connected lines to saxophones,
Yeah.
and then smooth holding chords to trombones.
Yes.
Like that lush sound.
Exactly.
But you know, depending on the band you're writing for, I mean, there are saxophonists that can really get a lot of punch out of things. You can get those really strong players, like a Chris Potter or Michael Brecker kind of sound. We can get really punchy sounds, and there's a lot of guys like locally that can do that too. So I mean, it is possible, but it depends on what you're writing for high school.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
Or you're writing for like,
of course.
I mean, even university bands might not. The saxophonists might not have developed that kind of control yet, but pros, sure. The rules change when you start working with professionals.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? When you start working with high-end musicians, the rules don't have to be applied the way that we learn arrangement in a university. Maria Schneider, a good example, like the way that she writes. I mean, obviously her stuff is not as punchy necessarily as like a Bob Mintzer big band arrangement, but the colors that she creates is really cool. Normally, the general big band things, if the trumpets are muted, they're pretty much all muted.
Yeah.
But how her ways of like muting 2 and 3, and then the fourth has a different mute, and then the first is playing, no mute or whatever. Like those interesting colors and assigning different things that are not conventional to a big band setting, which is very cool.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing is that, like, so you have the Maria Schneiders who will push those limits and challenge those things. But as an orchestrator, you do also have to consider that there are certain things that certain instruments are just good at.
Definitely.
Like really good at. And when it comes to production, when it comes to production, sometimes I find because a producer will think more about the listener than an orchestrator would, sometimes certain stereotypes become commonplace. And the one that I have the most beef with is the strings, because I love the strings so much. And it's almost every time, like in a movie, someone goes, "Oh, it's a sad moment. Bring in the strings," and it's like, guys, like, that's not for me, because I think what feeds into that the most is the fact that the strings are a nostalgic sound by nature. And so not necessarily a sad sound, they're just a bit nostalgic because they were so dominant in the old world of music, if you know what I'm saying. And when you want something to sound like it's from that era, the strings really do help with that, or to bring in that flavor, if you know what I'm trying to say, kind of.
Because I mean, I suppose in the sense that they're almost the only instrument that has never really been used outside of its original function. So so there were trumpets and brass in orchestras, for centuries. But now trumpets are also associated with funk and jazz, big band, or small combo jazz, and with lots of different types of music, whereas it's not commonplace, and I'm not saying there isn't, but there definitely are violin players. There are violinists that are used in not commercial, but in more modern contexts. But the broad, the biggest use for them is within an orchestra.
Yeah.
Or in a small combo to emulate an orchestra. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
definitely,
They've
definitely.
not their role in music has not necessarily changed as drastically as the trumpet has.
Yeah.
For instance, you know what I mean? Or like percussion turning into a drum set changing. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because like when you add strings to a pop tune now, and it isn't like that kind of sad string thing. It's like a thing. It's almost like a gimmick. It's something that'll like, for example, do you know "Rather Be" by Clean Bandit? Yeah. Now that has an actual string quartet. Like you can hear that the orchestrator used like one violin there, two violins there, and then you can hear the viola coming in and the cello.
Do you think it's real violins?
At least they were sampled at some point, and I can hear them being brought in as if it's actually four players.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
It's a very funky, cool tune.
Yeah, and
it's like at the time it was. I mean, it's still cool, but I mean, at the time it was big. It was really cool. I enjoyed that song. I actually did it with my big band when I was teaching the high school big band. We did Did we? I don't know. Maybe because it was a boys' school, but I think we did a collaboration with the girls' school. So I think we did do it.
Yeah,
and that's cool.
That's a really great track.
Yeah.
Like that kind of riff thing where you give it a riff and you can actually hear the bowing, and it's it's really cool.
But then also, its function is still the same because there are classical pieces which aren't long and somber, more punchy, and that's the thing. You can obviously bow stronger and still get a punchy attacking phrase from violins.
Yeah, no, definitely. You see now that's why I get frustrated, because when you make strings be the sad thing, you're ignoring like
or the
3/4 of classical music. Yeah, you're ignoring 75% of classical music. You know what I mean? Come on, guys.
Yeah.
Like there's so much you can do. Like so I've actually been doing research because I want to do a standalone video talking about the strings and trying to work with them, and. Yeah, like there's a lot of cool little things that people have done, like this is "Rather Be," which is like very modern pop, and then within the jazz context, Kurt Elling released an album which was dedicated to the Johnny Hartman, John Coltrane album. They basically did those tracks and a few other things, sort of this great homage to what they were doing, and their version of "All or Nothing at All," it has like the lush beginning, but then when they get into the groove, they actually have the players like completely plucking, hitting the body of it. It's got like a Latin groove with the strings by themselves, even without
percussion?
with percussion, but like
I mean, even if the percussion wasn't there, it would still be grooving.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Like so that groove was in the melody of in the writing of the strings, which I really enjoyed. And I was like, oh man, why didn't people use them like this? You know what I mean? And I know people do. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. But
sure, but it's not necessarily in the top 100.
No.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah. What other songs? I mean, I saw you posted a Facebook post.
Yeah, no one responded.
So Daniel put out a post to say, does anyone know of any pop songs which use real strings? And no one commented. He said, besides "Rather Be."
Yeah, besides "Rather Be." Everyone's just like, what? Yeah, I was quite sad. Guys, just...
So what other research did you find out about? Like, so basically, I mean, the topic is the use of real instruments within commercial music.
I'm talking just about strings.
Strings.
Just about strings.
Was that your topic?
Yeah, that I'm going to talk
I didn't realize.
Yeah. No, not for the podcast. The podcast, I want to talk about everything. But
okay, cool.
Yeah. Within the standalone video, I want to do it was just the strings.
Okay.
Because because I want to work. I want to work with the strings.
Okay.
Yeah.
You must know that Daniel just sends me a topic in an email, which I seldom read properly. I just open and go, okay, and then I sometimes do research for it. What is the fourth one?
Yeah.
I've done research twice, but it's quite cool because we both always come from different angles.
Yeah,
So you
yeah,
give me
yeah.
a topic and you have something in mind, and you don't tell me what your thing in mind is, and I go, okay, how do I interpret this? This topic, and my approach has always been a little bit different to yours. I don't know, you haven't actually started answering the full thing yet, so I want to hear your part, but I did my own research, and I guarantee that we took slightly different approaches to the thing. I found it quite interesting research, and it was quite cool for me as a performing musician to just do this research, and as someone that is is working on original music. And producing and stuff like that. So it was quite cool. But I don't know what I was going to say.
It's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah, like no, I find it interesting that because again you talk about that shift, or the fact that the strings kind of stay the same, and I find that I personally find that strange.
As in, it's you feel it's an incorrect statement, or you feel that it's strange that. Are you agreeing with me?
I'm agreeing with you.
Okay,
I find it strange that happened. You know what I mean? And a bit frustrating, because okay, a lot of modern music definitely takes it far out of where people are like hitting the violins together and and going nuts. Classical cats, you know what I'm talking about. But but that there's no way that's going to get anywhere near the mainstream. And I find it interesting that strings have strayed so far from the mainstream.
There's been two groups locally.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember Coda and Sterling EQ? I don't know how big Sterling EQ got, but Coda had relative success in South Africa. Radio, and basically it was a quartet. I can't remember. I know Sterling EQ was a full-on 4-piece quartet, string players, female string players, and then Coda was at least 2 violins and an alto player and a singer, if not another violin player. And they would perform live with strings. It was live recorded strings, but in like a dancey kind of dance setup. So that would be an example of someone, and they reached relative success, but it was in the dance commercial pop stream, and it was cool, and they were all great. They studied at UCT, I think most of them. Great musicians and vibing music. I mean, it was definitely on the top charts in South Africa. I cannot remember how long ago it was, but it was a good few years ago. I think, I don't know if it was already before that they were existing before I was even in college, but yeah, they've been around, and so that they reached some success. I don't know what they're doing right now. There's also a girl on Instagram, and I think she has a show on 5FM or something, a slot a year. Also a UCT graduate who does violin covers of pop songs.
Oh yeah, I know. I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I can't remember the girl's name. I didn't really know her, but I remember her face from college. And so she's kind of doing that, and she seems to be getting a lot of social media interaction, a lot of likes, a lot of views, doing really well. And I think that's why 5FM would have picked up. And it's something different. It's quite cool. Like you say, it's not something that's done. So if you can do it well, then all for it.
Yeah.
With classical piano was originally a classical instrument. And the first guys that came over and started like creating jazz and using a different context, in the early 1900s, were doing something different, in the same that someone would have to come and do this in the violin, for the violin. Like there always has to be someone that's going to bring it forward. Someone that's going to popularize it. There's always a pioneer of something. And I guess maybe violin players have never tried. I have been, what's that? There was a famous jazz violin player back in the day.
Okay.
No, like before our time, like big. I've heard some of his recordings. And he was quite famous. To be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of jazz violin.
Yeah, no,
Um,
I get that.
but I think violin in other streams is different. In pop and stuff like that, I don't mind it at all.
Yeah.
And then if you look at traditional instruments, Indian traditional instruments, some African instruments, which are stringed instruments that aren't necessarily a guitar. They're not bowed, but there are stuff out there that have created very indigenous sounds, and people that use in Europe, in like East Europe, the violin, and then you get folk music. What's that genre with the violin and the banjo and the double bass?
Like gypsy jazz and
but
and folk.
you know what I mean? The American, really fast music, and there's always like it's supposed to be a fiddle. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I think it's American. I don't know.
Yeah, I've always just called that folk. Like.
I guess you could call it folk, but I think there is a term for it. It's not bluegrass. It's something else. But yeah, I mean, it has been used in context other side of that, and then that fiddle. I don't think it's actually American. I think it started in Europe somewhere.
Yeah. It sounds like the Irish kind of.
Yeah. It's irritating me now.
Yeah.
But and that was like really fast dance music as well. A different type of, like, our concept of four on the floor. The dance music of that time, different. Quite cool. And obviously recordings of that, and it is out there. I just don't think it has come to the foreground of commercial pop in the sense of hitting the top 40 that often.
Outside of.
And I'm talking about like the top 40, the Billboard, because they are, you get like the jazz top 40, and you get the other.
Yeah.
Maybe they can come up there, but I'm talking about with the general public of the world listens to, because there are a lot of people that don't ever listen outside of that.
Yeah.
Not often,
Definitely. I suppose someone who's got the closest is probably someone like Lindsay Sterling, and I don't know. You probably won't know her. Yeah, she's the YouTuber who got really big for dancing and playing the violin. So, the music's really pretty, and violinists make fun of her a lot. Because
yeah, but don't they all?
Yeah.
Like anyone that goes out and does something commercial, even within jazz, the minute the guy starts doing a popish album and then the jazz music, Kenny G, for instance.
Yeah.
All the jazz musicians are like, oh, he can't play jazz. And he just released a video the other day.
Yeah.
Did you see that video playing bebop? And I was always like, and I mean, Zeke was always the guy to say, Kenny G's amazing saxophonist. Because when we spoke about it last week, like, simple music played by great musicians will sound great.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's irrelevant. He makes that simple music sound great. Yes, he's using cliches, but sometimes he created those cliches. I mean, he was a pioneer of that type of music. Now, which every saxophonist, like, well, not every but there's a huge surplus of saxophonists following a sound that's exactly his sound, but inspired by that and a mixture of other fusion music. So, I mean, he was a pioneer of that. So, anyone, what's that guy's name? Also a violin player who's become it's on the tip of my tongue. He classical violin player, but really commercially successful, if you can. What's his name? Like long hair. I think he's European. Andre Rieu.
Oh yeah, Andre Rieu. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. He plays the old classics.
He's basically like the equivalent of us jazz musicians playing standards. Fly Me to the Moon and stuff like that. Basically the same thing.
Yeah, or more like tribute shows and like
exactly
tribute shows.
And there's not, but then he goes, it's like all out. I mean, huge shows and they dress in Baroque, era. If he's doing a Baroque show, the whole orchestra wears like these. I mean, it's huge and it's cool. And I think as musicians, we sometimes look at that and go, I mean, like, want to moan and whatever. And I feel like if he's doing something that's working, and yes, he's playing popular music, but if he's doing it well, then what is your gripe? Because if that's not what you want to do, then why must you hate on someone that wants to do that?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that's a thing. Another one was Vanessa May. I don't know if you remember that name.
Sorry.
Before your time. Asian lady. Also commercialized classical music, playing violin, also kind of dancing. I would imagine this lady you spoke about, Lindsay Sterling, would have been inspired by this woman as a kid or something, because she had like music videos done. She was signed to a label as a solo artist, and would take maybe some classical pieces. She had original compositions, but also classical pieces. But then had like dramatize it with like electronics as well, with drum beats and stuff. But classic, familiar tunes. Very good, very very also very performance type performing, not like symphony solo violins kind of standing there.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
really,
Yeah, no,
performing
Yeah.
full on. So she was also someone. So I guess it's been around.
Yeah, definitely.
It's been there. There's people been pushing it, but and obviously, so she did some classical renditions of songs, covers, can I say? But then also had her own original compositions and stuff. And she was really big.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, in fairness, I did find through my own research, because no one responded to the Facebook thing, I was listening to Ariana Grande's I think it was not her latest album, but one of them. Thank You Next, that album.
Isn't that the latest one?
I'm pretty sure that's the latest one.
With 7 rings on it and stuff?
Yes,
I think it is.
yeah. And then
Unless she's released something since, but no,
Yeah.
I don't think so.
and there's a song called Bad Idea that uses strings quite a lot.
And was it recorded or was it sampled?
Probably sampled. But the thing is that's like when I'm talking about strings in music, when strings are being used like strings in popular music, then I'm like, cool. And they were being used like strings.
You don't necessarily mean actually recorded live with a live band.
No,
like with a live orchestra.
Yeah, I care more about like the way the elements come in.
So, for instance, Quincy Jones' arrangements of songs.
Yeah.
For instance, even though the synthesizer is being used as a big band.
Yeah.
Because basically all of his Michael Jackson Thriller album is like a big band in synthesizers.
Yeah.
With a bit of strings anyways, and like live, I mean, at that time everything was live. Yeah. So I mean that was his arrangement was functional, because I mean he comes from a background of arranging for big band string arrangements, and he was very proficient and well sought after as that. And so his knowledge of that would have been would have inspired the way he produced and arranged for other things. And you can hear that. I mean, so that Thriller album, he wasn't just the producer; he also did the arrangements. And I imagine he had quite a big hand in composing as well. A lot of that music was not necessarily written by Michael Jackson or Quincy Jones. Other people gave it, but then they would have interpreted it and taken it and put the arrangement down and orchestrated.
Yeah.
There wasn't much digitization back then still.
Yeah.
So that's quite. He's an example of not using strings maybe in certain music, but still taking the concept of arrangement and concept of orchestration into the way he arranged the synthesizers and the way the band was playing. Because he was an amazing big band composer.
Yeah, definitely. Like there's actually kind of it's a convention that helps your music feel more realistic within film scoring, which is one of the first things Andrew Hoult ever told me, which was, if your score cannot be played by a real orchestra and you're writing an orchestral part, it's not going to work. And I agree with him. There's things you can do to enhance the orchestra that you cannot do live on stage within a film score. Like, for example, there's no way, if you want to have panning and stuff like that, you can't get your first violin to run from that side of the stage to that side of the stage while maintaining a note. But you see, that's not the point. The idea is that the actual score is playable.
Yeah. I get you. I think I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, it's more like, but in terms of me when I say, if someone has actually used the strings, if someone can play it, then they've used the strings. If they can't play it, then they've just used it as like a sample.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So that just that distinction.
Yeah.
Like, use the strings as strings.
I mean, yeah, I suppose. I mean, it makes sense, but I mean, there's so much music out there now. I don't know. Yeah, I guess it depends. I don't know. I honestly don't know how I feel about that statement.
Okay.
I don't. Mm, if you're writing a film score, the whole thing is dramatized. The whole thing is fake. Like
Mm.
most of Hollywood movies are completely fake. No real life. It's not like real life. Like we were talking last night, the difference of like Hollywood and European movies. So
Yeah.
the general European movie, like the artsy, the artsy movies, is based on like real life and like real situations,
Mm.
and they're not overdoing it. But Hollywood is all mostly about creating entertainment, and the explosions are always more bigger than an explosion would ever happen.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Uh, like the situations are generally um, unreal in themselves. Comedy, it's it's over exaggerating something for comedic effect. So is it then necessary for something that is fake in itself to make that then the music now needs to be real? Because that to me doesn't make sense. I don't feel that the music then needs to be playable if what we're talking about is fake.
Mm.
Even when it comes to the way that Hollywood does documentaries and, you know, based on a true story thing, it's always they create their own little characters, they'll create things, they'll make it sellable. So
Mm-hmm.
certain to music, then instead of getting too caught up in what is real and what isn't, just make it good. And there's an element of adding one more thought process that can kind of block it from being actually like if I mean, and I'm not. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if you get what I'm saying. I feel like music in itself, if you listen to lyrics and stuff, some of them it's irrelevant. The song was just written to be a thing, and
Yeah.
and that was a secondary thing. So now trying to make that real, when the thing in itself is fake. The thing like a studio is a fake setting.
Yeah, yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Like we're so used to this commercial idea of music, played on radio, and then people go and watch concerts and they don't always enjoy it as much because the sound is not the same, because they're used to this fake thing, this
Mm-hmm.
thing where I can record it over and over again until I get it right. Where I can slow it down to play it right and then speed it back up so that it sounds in time.
Mm.
Like it's a complete unnatural situation. Dampening a room, taking away reverb, like whatever we want to do, we are completely creating an unreal situation, taking away mistakes, but mistakes are part of life. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
why then be so concerned about the fact that it can be real?
Yeah.
In any setting, I feel like that's unnecessary because the fact of recording something is already unreal.
True.
Because what you're doing as a composer, in any setting. If you're trying to do a top 40 hit, or if you're trying to write for a film, or if you're trying to write for a concert, you're still trying to create something that isn't there. If you're talking about something, you can tell a story, it happened, you still feel the emotion, but you need to let them feel the emotion. So
Yeah.
how do you do it? You make it, you over dramatize it. You know what I mean? To make
Yeah.
the effect real, we use strings to bring sadness and melancholic
Yeah, yeah,
vibes. You
yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, definitely.
we're creating something out of nothing. We're creating something that isn't there at the moment.
Mm.
And in that, we like fabricating stuff. We're playing the piano, we're fabricating in that moment of fabricating something that wasn't there before. There's an act of me going and creating something
Mm.
because I'm actually making the piano do what I needed to do. So if I can record it and then if I can redo it and redo it and redo it, that's fake. So why not just allow me to make sure that it's perfect, even if I couldn't play it perfect,
Yeah.
depending on the setting and and whatever it is. Because
Sure.
it's, I'm like in jazz, I do like to do it as it is with mistakes or whatever. But then there's other types of music we quantize and we fix. And, I don't know.
Yeah.
I stand. I don't. I don't agree with that, to be honest.
Sure.
I'm not saying I'm right, and I'm not saying Andrew Hull is wrong.
Mm.
My approach to music would not be that strict. I feel like I get what he's saying, but I'm not a purist. I don't feel that anyone needs a purist. I
Yeah.
don't think we need purists. And everyone's being purist, and maybe that's why we're struggling to get strings in pop settings. Do you know what I mean? Because we want to be purists about something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's. But I mean, for him, he was coming more from the thing of like, if you're writing for a violin, don't write here. You know what I mean? That's more what he was trying to say.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
If you say, I mean, obviously,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
because even your samples probably wouldn't be able to put it down
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
But then again, um, maybe that's the sound you want. A sampled violin doing that thing is what we do, right? We do that
Yeah.
kind of thing. We're sampling. I feel like mood capturing the moment and the mood, or whatever it is, whether it's the moment of this film or the moment of this song and the lyric of that song. You know, that's more important over being technically correct.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like the whole fact of like how some theory was brought about when we thought that this was theory. This is the rules of music creation in one stage in life. And it changed because someone stretched it. Someone decided to go, I don't care actually. I'm going to write the song. This piece of music maybe is not necessarily for the people. This is for my peers. And I'm going to show them that you can actually do this, which was not allowed at the time. Do you know what I mean? Like music doesn't always have to be for the people. There is times when we don't write for the people. We write for me. I write for me. Or I write for you. Or I write for academic purposes. There's all type of music.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
I mean, whatever the moment is, rules are irrelevant to me. That kind of thing. I'm like, I don't care. A mood must be created, no matter how that is.
Yeah. No, I'm sure Andrew would agree with you, actually.
I hear what he's saying.
Yeah.
But I would never be purist about writing a string. So if I want the strings to do something and I wanted to use real strings, I'd use real strings, and then I'd sample something else and make it work in that way, or I'd filter it and change it, or transpose it on the computer because I wanted them to record on this part of the register of the strings.
Yeah.
But I actually want it to be in this key, but I want that depth of it. Do you know, like whatever it is? Like, I mean, these are things that we have at our disposal. Why not use it?
No, definitely. Yeah.
Anyways,
That's okay. Yeah, no, that's fine. That's perfect. Yeah, man. No, I definitely agree with you. Like, I think I'm kind of my head's kind of in both camps. A bit more in your camp, where I care because for me, I care purely about functionality when it comes to music and to most things. So like, if it works, it works, and I want to make something that works. Now, the way that the slightly purist mentality can help you sometimes is, for example, one of the string pieces that I looked at was, you know, the musical Hamilton. Now, there's a song called Farmer Refuted, and I was listening to the I've forgotten his name now. I feel terrible, but he was the MD, and he orchestrated a lot of the stuff, and he wrote that piece with like baroque counterpoint between a violin, a cello, and I'm pretty sure a harpsichord, and then also obviously the vocal, and that whole thing. He's like, I wanted it to sound like the old world, so he had to like bring out his old counterpoint book and start writing. You know what I mean? Yeah. And sometimes like, that helps. You know,
definitely, I agree with you, but it's a setting. If you're trying to create something, then cool. So there's this series called Rain. Okay. I don't know if you heard of it. It's like a low budget Netflix thing, but my wife and I have really gotten into it. And we stopped watching it long ago. And then we kind of, both of us got sick, like again. I don't know. It was not sick, we're not sick, it's just, chest and stuff. This season, I think, I don't know. Anyway, so we've been binging a bit, like at night. And when we first started watching it, it irritated me. So it's based on Queen Mary and Queen Elizabeth. You know, the battle between Scotland, her being the heir to Scotland and Queen Elizabeth being the Queen of England, but both of them having claim to the throne, and fight this stupid battle.
Okay, cool.
Little bit of fact to it, but you know, it's just a drama, and it's quite interesting. But the thing that irritated me, so everything is right. It's in French court, but everyone's speaking with English and American accents. First of all, but who cares? Okay, we get it. And then and everyone's dressed in the right, age appropriate attire, and it's cool. It's fine. Taking into consideration it is lowish budget. It's not terrible, but it's there's no like amazing graphics, and it's there's a whole battle, but you only see a few people. But the thing that grinded me at the beginning of it was the music was semi baroque, semi baroque classical vibes, but in a pop context. So there'd be like pop songs, sung with guitar, like in a modern context of production in this thing, and then there'd be like a classical thing. But any time that there was maybe a dance and there's like a live orchestra, there's chamber ensembles things, but there'd be like a beat, and it grinded me at first, and then I got into it. And I was like, I actually get what they're trying. I feel like they're not trying to make it too authentic. They're just making entertainment. And I got it. I eventually was like, it's fine. I dig it. So even then, depending on, I'm not saying Hamilton's wrong. That's a great.
Yeah,
whole
no,
thing.
I'm with you.
I'm just saying that there is a time and place for it to be pushed
yeah, definitely.
and to go, okay, what about if we try this?
Yeah.
And it did irritate me
yeah.
at the beginning, but I got into it and I dug it eventually. And I think it's quite cool. And they'll do covers of current pop songs sometimes, like love songs or whatever.
Oh yeah.
A lot of love in the whole thing. And with sort of like a little bit of respect to, the tradition, the actual music, but acoustic guitar, there wouldn't be like a bass and a drum set, but there'd be percussion, there'd be like a beat moving, be like, something happening. It's cool. It's a vibe. So there's also another approach that, we don't have to be strict about it.
Although I must say, having worked with the director before, probably what happened one day, the director was like, okay, cool, so we want something very baroque, and then he wrote like all baroque stuff, and then they were like, too much.
I don't mean that baroque. Have you not heard Vanessa May?
Yeah.
100%, like, yeah.
Oh no, I love it. I mean, it's probably still, the music is probably still great. Like,
I mean, I'm not gonna say it's great. I don't think it's not bad. It's tasteful.
yeah, I'm sure it's still fine. You know, like,
there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, if you listen to it, I think if you took away the fact that if you listen to the music on its own, I think you'd enjoy it without watching. The thing that bothered me was the combination at first.
Oh yes.
Do you get it? But not the fact that the music was bad. It's not bad music.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes when they're just doing underscoring, it's like, okay, you're not an underscorer. You're a songwriter.
Yes.
Whoever you are, whoever the MD is, you are right. You shouldn't be underscoring, because that's when it just gets a bit like, there's like logic loops. You know those? Have you seen those loops when they got like swells and they go like, there's like a loop there. Like if you maybe, I don't know what it's for. I could guess if you wanted to do a skit and make this sound like it's a news thing, and they have like these news anchor themes, a short one, a long one, like that.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, he's like kind of like taking the things that are already done and just put it in. Like sometimes they don't make sense or they don't line up exactly. I'm like, oh. But the music, the songs that he puts together and writes or like covers of, they're cool.
I love the idea of just like, Mary, I think I need the throne. Da, 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 da. Channel 4 News.
Yeah, pretty much that. Pretty much.
Oh, I love that. Or even like, I didn't notice it until, again, Andrew pointed it out to me. But I love Gordon Ramsay. And on his shows, the number of times they use a cymbal swell. Like,
oh, yes.
You know what I mean? Just everything.
When it was about to go to like, when they're like talking about like what's to come next or what you missed, and then, what you mean?
Yeah. Or even worse, like just like him walking into the door. Gordon came into the door.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
as he opens and he walks in, hello. Like,
it's a guy in GarageBand, like getting paid like stupid money and he has no experience. It's his daughters.
Yeah. I love it. It's probably.
But then again, we go like, we're musicians and we're like, let's write something. Let's be clever.
Yeah.
Let's do a Daniel. We overwork ourselves and never sleep. And then it's not necessary because only you notice. I've actually never noticed it myself watching his stuff. I used to like watch with Kitchen Nightmares.
Yes, it was so
flipped.
fun.
It was me and Leanne used to like, we were addicted to that thing every night. But I mean, I didn't even pay attention to that.
Yeah, it's like dun 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 dun. I love it. I mean, I kind of dig it now. Like, I think it's because it feels like something that Gordon, someone like Gordon, he started like way back, and he had that and he went, people, whenever I have that swell there, but whenever the Foley guy put the swell there, people notice what I was talking about.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do it for the rest of my career because it worked.
It will work.
Yeah.
And there's no need to pay someone that's going to write out a thing
for
a 30-minute show, which he's churning out. I mean, he's doing like how many shows? There's just not time.
Yeah, not anymore. He's traveling the world now.
No, yeah, but I mean, he's probably taking a break and he's about to start again. And, it's
Yeah.
unnecessary. We overwork ourselves half the time. We do. I mean, Gavin always tells me, it's like, he says, you make your life so hard because if I do a gig, I'll do like a gig and I'll take the hardest route out, I'll play difficult music, and he's like, he doesn't care. He just goes, I just play. It's not like he doesn't care about the gig. He gives his gig, but he's like, I'm not gonna make it hard for myself. I'm gonna play songs I know, make songs everyone else just knows. Yeah, I am like transcribing stuff new because I'm a little bit bored and I want new music, and I transcribe these difficult things and we call a rehearsal, and it only pays a little amount of money, and then it's like a waste, and then like it's unnecessary.
Yeah, I'm even worse.
Yeah.
Like there was a point like in the beginning of the year whenever I had like the first 3 gigs I had with my band, I'd write a new song for every gig.
Yeah.
And I'd bring it, and I'd always like bring it in like on the cusp, like as in the freshly written lyrics are on my stand.
In pen.
In pen, yeah. And I'm reading them like that.
And crossouts and
Yeah,
arrows.
yeah.
No, go here.
And I'd be like, good evening. And I remember I made it the opener. Like, good evening. I'm about to shit myself.
Philip. Yeah.
Oh, nice. I'm an idiot.
I don't know
Anyway,
if I'll ever learn. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, there is.
I remember
Yeah.
national band at Joy of Jazz, and Christian Scott was, it was Christian Scott. There was a lot of, it was some really hip,
Mm-hmm.
and the night before they were about to go on stage, no, in sound check. So we had to do this really early, you do that morning express thing, whatever it is, whatever the show is, and you play live. So the national band was playing, and then Christian Scott was playing, and he started teaching his guys a song to do then on TV then.
Yeah.
No chart, because like, it's like this, man. It's
Yeah.
I think it's never gonna leave, dude. Like, I think that's just part of it.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I remember getting really annoyed with the guys once because they didn't tell me what was going on. They started playing a tune. I was on set, but I didn't know what to sing, so I just sort of stood there. Anyway, yeah.
No one
Sure.
cares about the singer, Dan.
Yeah,
You should
I
know that
know.
by now.
Yes, and especially in
You're
jazz.
a trumpeter. You should know that.
Yeah, in jazz they don't care about us. Like literally everywhere else, we're the biggest thing on stage, but like in jazz,
It's a stupid concept, I think.
yeah, same.
Although I don't like it when singers scat,
Mm.
as you well know.
Yes, I know. It's fun. I mean, I think it's even someone like me who loves the challenge. Like I know that it's something I use sparingly. It's got a very specific thing. Like, yeah. It's not for everyone. It's not for a lot of people.
It's also for the song.
Yeah.
The song. I don't see the point of doing a scat solo on "Fly Me to the Moon."
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Like, and like even within my original music, if I'm not like using my voice as an instrument, I typically don't take a solo. Unless it's like part of the song, like through written, because there's one song where it's through written that I take a solo, and it kind of works.
Yeah, that's different. That's not like
Yeah, no, I'm with you, but like most of the old standards, like nah, man, that like "Fly Me to the Moon" was a big band tune that didn't even originally. I don't think it even had a solo. Like it was just arranged.
Yeah.
3 minutes.
Yeah, but I do agree with a scat solo if it's adding to the vibe.
Yeah.
So not a bebop scat solo.
Yeah.
If you are just creating a vibe where people are gonna go, yo, this is gonna add to the vibe, and the band is gonna rock out,
Yeah.
different vibe. You're just creating a vibe. But if you're gonna come and be like turnarounds and enclosures and no one cares. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I know.
even on the piano, no one cares what you're doing. It needs to be a vibe. But either if it's a ballad and we need it to be sad, create that vibe. Add to it if it needs to be happy. Add to that vibe. It needs to be funky. Add to that vibe. Otherwise, your solo is just a self-indulged moment to show how much you know, and that's irrelevant. I feel like I try my best to not show what I know, and as opposed to create energy, add to the moment of the song, not go, hey guys, look what I can do.
Yeah, I've been.
Can you do this?
Yeah.
Can you do it, Dan?
Yeah.
Can you? I don't. Can you do it? I'm gonna show you quickly. Like
Yeah. No, I got you. I've been like, I think ever since when I made Natural Band, like I was kind of, I noticed that in the room, like that vibe. Like, like in the auditions in particular, you kind of like, you're trying to outlick each other constantly. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, this is the gig. I'm gonna do it to try and get the gig, if you know what I mean. And then after I did that, I kind of like the past 2 years, I've been slowly winding that down in my head.
Me too. I'm still.
Yeah, like it's because it's not what I care about in music. Like, I mean, I remember there was a point where I didn't like any solos. Like, I hated the idea of improvising at all.
Even for other people to improvise.
Yeah. Like is it, like when I was in high school and stuff. Like, what I loved about like I'd love Cottontail because the solo wasn't too long, you know, like and the arrangement was really good and the sax solo was really cool. You know, I love that aspect of music. I love the fact that it was and even that solo is so like it's so iconic. You know, you spoke about take a solo so good that it becomes a melody. You know what I mean? And that's
Yeah.
become a melody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was that kind of solo. You know, and that's what I loved about music. I loved that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I definitely am not the biggest fan of long solos in settings.
Yeah, yeah,
There's time for that.
yeah, definitely.
But if it's a pop gig, yeah, keep it
No.
down. Keep it, 16 bars. That's
Or-
enough. Do you know what I
Or
mean?
not don't even have a solo. You know, like that's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
not always the place.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. It depends on, like, again, the song
Yeah,
and the vibe that's being created.
it really does.
So I have some notes.
Okay, sure.
So the topic that you gave me was like,
Okay, we don't have too much time.
cool. Is basically the instrumental music, its uses in today, kind of.
Yeah.
So what I decided to do was I went on last year's top 100. So
Mhm.
the final top 100 for the year, and I went through the top 20,
Okay, sure.
and I went into the research of each one to discover which ones used real instruments and were sampled, but I also took into account the artists that are actually musicians themselves. So if they were a musician, what choices did they make?
Yeah.
Or if it was a band, what choices did they make? So the first one that came up, I can't remember what numbers they were, but I mean, this is kind of in order of higher up to lower up. So Perfect, Ed Sheeran was the
Mhm.
first one that came up.
Yeah.
So obviously Ed Sheeran is guitar,
Yeah.
and that's obviously him playing it. The interesting thing is that so this is what I find quite interesting about that one, is that the original was recorded at Abbey Road Studios in England,
Okay.
which is a top studio, legendary studio. The Beatles recorded there.
Mhm.
But so it was a full orchestra.
Okay.
They recorded a full orchestra, the strings, brass, everything, right? No drums, no piano, nothing. Just orchestra in his voice. And you can see the video of him recording it live with the orchestra.
Mhm.
It's beautiful. But then they never used it for the actual release. They released that version as a symphony release,
Mm.
but it wasn't the release that went to radio. Like
Yeah.
the actual, the release that was going to be published properly. I mean, it was published, but you know what I mean, pushed.
Yeah.
And so I went to go and listen to both versions. The string version was nice, but in my opinion, the produced version was better. So that has no real instruments besides the guitar. That is completely synth strings. Even though they had recorded strings there, I think they used like a tiny, tiny fraction of what was recorded at Abbey Road.
Mhm.
But the main string parts there are actually synth. They're actually sampled instruments, not you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
MIDI instruments, and that's very interesting.
Mhm.
But I still feel that part of that version is actually nicer.
Mm.
I feel it's more emotive. So that was an interesting choice. That the label decided, yes, we're recording real instruments, but yet we're still going to go and have it produced. Pay someone else. You pay all this money to be at Abbey Road Studios, hire a whole orchestra, record them, and then still pay someone else to go and produce a new track that we're actually going to push with no real instruments. Very interesting. So that was my first interesting. So the next one was the Havana by Camilo Cabello.
Mhm.
So everything was sampled, but there was a real trumpet. The trumpet was actually recorded. It was an artist. And he's named in the personnel credits. Interesting that she didn't sing her own backing vocals. There's that one voice at the top, and it's Pharrell.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and this other girl named Stara, I don't know how you say that. She also did the backing vocals.
Oh, that's cool.
It's quite interesting. And going through each of these tracks, there's a lot of them where main vocals, and you think it's them doing their own backing vocals, and then after people Not just live, other people actually recording their backing vocals. I did not know that.
Oh, really?
I mean, I knew that obviously some
Yeah.
parts when it's obvious, but it's actually so common,
Hmm.
which is always quite interesting. So
Pretty cool. And I suppose on that track, the real trumpet makes sense.
sure,
Because that buys into the tradition of the track. That's it's.
what's it? I would like it like that. What? No, what is it? What is it? What's the? It's a sample of a pop song. Um, it's a sample.
Oh, is it a sample?
It's a
Okay.
sample. But I mean, the trumpet was recorded over that.
Oh, okay, sure.
And then the next one was Girls Like You. But the only thing recorded. So this is a band, right? It's Maroon 5. It's not Adam Levine alone, it's Maroon 5.
Mm-hmm.
And they recorded. So the only real instrument is just the loop of 2 bars. That's the whole thing. So it's a full band. They opted to not use any real instruments. Found that very interesting.
Okay.
The next one was. This wasn't recorded live, but Finesse, Bruno Mars.
Yeah, I know Finesse.
So I found that one interesting because he's an amazing musician, right? He can play all the instruments,
Yeah.
and he has on various different tracks. But that whole album was completely produced. There's no live instruments. Performed live with a band, but it's recorded live. So yet again, it's another choice to not like he has a band, you know.
Yeah.
But no, we're gonna go sampled, and it sounds great. It sounds like it's real instruments. So obviously, the producers are competent keyboard players and drum samplers because it sounds real, it sounds live, but it's pretty much sampled. I think maybe the guitar parts are sometimes done, but pretty much just sampled. The next one is this one's just the last one. Just struck out to me again because Thunder by the Imagine Dragons, completely, again, no live instruments, but they're a band.
Okay.
So there's none of the band is playing on that track at all. So that the band is guitar, bass, drums, and voice, but the whole track is synthesized.
Yeah.
Even the drums is
I suppose-
synthesized.
You see, that's the thing. You remember when we were talking about the anomaly thing that you wanted to do, and I think it's because if you when you lose, live instruments are more dynamic and they're naturally have more energy and louder,
Yeah.
but synth instruments are punchier.
Yeah, well, they're all different. Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
on average they're punchier, and I think the pop sound right now is so punchy.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, even though they have all these beautiful things and they will use it,
Yeah.
it's just like for the top 40, man, you gotta throw the A in there, and you gotta
That's exactly the point that I was realizing is that for anyone that is trying to produce their own things or is in a band, if you are trying to compete at this level, you don't have to use your band. You can perform live with your band, but I think you'd be making a mistake to compete at that level. Like if you're going, I want to make a top 40 hit, US Billboard charts, you know, you're going to struggle. Because even bands that are successful bands, Maroon 5, you know, Imagine Dragons, Bruno Mars, are not even using their band in the studio.
Yeah.
You know, Ed Sheeran, not using a recorded symphony orchestra in an Abbey Road studio for the actual recording. Do you know what I mean? There's something to be said about that, is that the sound, we're not accepting that anymore. It's not a sound that we want because, like you say, it's easier to control every part of a programmed instrument.
Yeah.
To change the sound, to change its presets, because if it's MIDI, I can go back and redo it if I need to change something. If it's a recorded thing, I have to call that guy back.
Yeah, definitely.
Or do 500 takes with all different options. It's too time consuming. It's just so much easier to make this thing, like I say, studio's fake, make it perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Make it a fake perfect.
Yep.
And then live, you play with your band with backtracks.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, exactly. And see, that's why, like, when I say using strings, I don't necessarily mean using live strings, like it has to be recorded. I mean, it's more like using a string sample, a good string sample, as if it's a string instrument.
Yeah.
That's why I made that distinction. Because
Yeah.
I do realize that, you know, you still have to play the game.
Yeah. It's an interesting one. I mean, I don't know if it's a pro or con. Because you see, guys aren't necessarily losing out on work.
No.
I don't think because we're not accepting anymore the solo singer with a backtrack and no one else on stage. There was a time when it happened, you know, it was literally just a person singing. There was a time in like the noughties, you know, when people were doing that and people were still paying big money to go and watch those performances. But it's not acceptable anymore. People are still are wanting that live band, even though they're pretty much doing nothing. They're just playing to something and they're just adding an extra energy over a backtrack.
Yeah.
But it does make a difference. We are not losing out on work. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would imagine that even in the creation process the creative process for a band is that they're still working together, they're recording stuff, but then it becomes produced properly.
Yeah,
Do you know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah,
There's still
definitely.
money going around. It's not like people are losing work. There's just become a new ideal sound.
Yeah.
It may flip again. It may go back. But
Mm.
it hasn't been like that for like 20, 30 years almost.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, the lo-fi thing just isn't as popular anymore.
yeah.
Yeah,
So it's interesting.
very interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Sure. Shall we end it there?
Yeah.
Sure. Thanks so much for letting me come through, Blake.
Yeah, man.
We're back at his place. Thanks so much for watching. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week.
Cheerio.
Cheers.